Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Mail. So for today, I'm going to do a pretty entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This guy is 49 years old, he's married like 20 years, says he's got a good marriage, so good for him. And he's writing in sharing a series of short stories of all the crazy crap that happens in the small town he lives in. And he's writing these in for both entertainment, but things we can learn from, and to show you that, as I like to say often about us being in Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, it's everywhere, not just in some busy city or something like that, but also in our small little towns. These sweet and innocent, quaint, small towns, the same crap happens there, so be careful. And not a whole lot to say beyond that, besides this is really just about a lot of good quality entertainment here. So if you like the crazy ones, this is definitely good. So crack open your beer, this is going to be a long one. He says, Dear SSM, I've been a subscriber to your channel from very early on. The first video of yours I watched was filmed indoors, not in your vehicle, if that gives you an idea. So you're going back 5 years ago. That's a long time. I appreciate your support, man. Anyway, there are a lot of stories you've covered where some people in the comment section will call it all as fake. Now, I'm not saying that isn't 100% the case. Some stories have been pretty wild, and one might be inclined to think that the world we live in can't possibly be that messed up. Newsflash, the world is that messed up. While it's certainly possible that few people have at least embellished a story here and there, and even possibly gave the whole thing up for some reason, I'm still inclined to give the benefit of a doubt. This is because I've seen some pretty crazy crap in my life, in my own eyes, and I've heard directly from people I personally know that were involved in situations just as unbelievable. There you go. You said on many occasions something to the effect that it doesn't matter what time period it is, or when it happened, or where you are in the world, these things do happen and have always happened. That statement, coupled with comments calling out fake stories, and then compared to things I've seen with my own eyes or heard from the horse's mouth, got me thinking I should write in. Well, I've been saying this all the time, and it's the freaking truth. Human nature doesn't change, and humans are pretty screwed up. We're no different, really, except for technology and better things like that, than we were 5,000 years ago. We do the same freaking things. Doesn't make a difference what culture we're in, where we are in the world, our wealth, religion, whatever. Mankind does the same thing. We'll be no different in 5,000 years if we're still around. Shit, if we're around in 100 years. My thought behind writing this is the fact I live in a small, very rural town, and this type of behavior is that prevalent here. Just imagine what it's like in more populated areas. Cheating on your spouse is usually a crime of opportunity. Also, cheaters tend to keep their affairs out of the limelight. There's not nearly as much opportunity in a small town of 1,400 people compared to a large city, and in a community this small, word travels fast. It's almost impossible to keep a secret like that. I spent a lot of my life living in a small town, and he is 100% accurate about that. Now compare that to a very large town or a large city with millions of people, and the opportunities increase 1,000-fold, and you're so lost in the crowd that you're less likely to be noticed. Aaron Lewis's song, Try That in a Small Town, should have included a verse about trying to keep an affair quiet in a small town. Not going to happen. I also think, knowing that I spent a lot of life in a small town, is that at least in a busier area, city, or someplace more going on, there's more to do. But when you're in this boring as fuck, nothing's going on small town, there's nothing to do, so people start getting into trouble. I'm not saying people don't get into trouble and do things like what you hear all the time in more urban areas where there's things to do, but I really do think in the small town, I can't tell you all the mischief I got into as a kid because we're bored, there's nothing to do. What a bunch of teenage boys going to do, but, well, I'm not going to mention, but you get my point. He says, about me, I'm 49, I've been living in this town since I was 14. I have no desire to ever move anywhere else. I do very well for myself financially. I've been married for 21 years, and I would say that it's been a happy marriage. And I do love my wife and consider myself fortunate in that regard, considering what I've seen happen around me. That being said, I realize that my marriage could be over tomorrow or last decades longer, so one must remain vigilant if you want to keep things the way it is. I'm not naive enough to think that nothing could ever go wrong, but for the past 21 years, right up to now, it's been very good. Well, that's good to hear, man. Obviously, you're doing something right. And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that not only are you doing it right, but you're keeping your eyes wide open for things and handling her accordingly. But yes, it could happen tomorrow. It could end tomorrow, and you know it. I have a small group of friends that I hang out with. We fish, hunt, golf, and sometimes we get families together for a barbecue or a weekend camping trip. This friend group is small, more people than you can count on one hand, but less than you can count on two. These guys are my brothers. My truck could break down 4 hours away, and I could call any one of them, and they'd come on the road within 10 minutes, and I'd do the same for them. Well, that's awesome. That's all you need, man. Just a few good friends, and really. But enough about me. I have some stories to tell, so let's get to it. Now, here we go, guys. He wanted to get some background information here. That's fine. But now we're going to get into his multiple, very short to short stories they're going to find entertaining and not at all going to surprise you. It says, you have to bear with me on these. I'm going to try my best to give enough details to get my point across, while at the same time not giving away details of the actual people or places involved. I'll start with some simple stories, and we'll work our way up to the crazy. He says, first one. My first cousin, who we will call James, married his high school girlfriend. She wasn't a 10, she was an 11. I mean, smoking hot. They were married for 6 to 7 years when she left him for another guy from a very rich family. Always monkey branching. You don't marry the 9s and 10s and 11s. Those are just for fun. Now, I never found out if she was cheating on him with this guy, but the fact that she moved out of his house directly to the other guy's house makes you wonder. This happened around 2005. Moral of the story here is, don't marry above an 8. Yep, I've been saying that for a long time. This guy's right. Another story. My younger brother was married for almost 15 years. He got divorced about 5 years ago. He came home one day and she was gone. There were divorce papers on the kitchen counter. Completely blindsided him. Turns out she was having an affair with another woman. Well, you know what? That's going to hurt, but at least it was another dude. But regardless. But yeah, heartless. Just like that, boom. There's the divorce papers. I'm done with you. And I'm sure he probably got raked through the coals. Another one. My older brother was married for 12 years. They also got divorced due to an affair, but in this case, it was him cheating on her. Well, smack the older brother. I don't have much more to say about that. I could write a 3-page SSM series on what happened, but we'll leave it just like that and move on. The point here is, it's not just the gals. Guys do it too. Well, yeah. Another one. My younger sister. What is with your family here? Younger brother, older brother, now we're on to your sister? My younger sister started an emotional affair online with a guy in another country, literally halfway across the world. It probably was a girl, or it's just some bot she was talking to. She divorced her husband and flew off to be with the other guy. She then had a kid with the other guy, and then divorced him to be with a different guy in the same country. Had a kid with him, and they're still together, but it's only been 2 to 3 years now, so we'll see how that plays out. The funny part is that the reason she gave for leaving him first, the first husband, was, he keeps pressuring me to have kids, and I don't want to have kids for at least 10 more years. Then she goes off and has a kid almost immediately. Your sister's a scumbag. I have nothing to do with her. Your parents are probably like, where did we go wrong? But already, this is just his family, let alone many more to come, guys. This is why I'm doing this story. Lots of little crazy stories to show you this shit happens everywhere. Next one. This next story happened to one of my best friends from high school. Let's call him Chad because, well, he was kind of a Chad. Girls fawned over this guy. Very tall, 6'6", and muscular. Good athlete. About a year after graduation, mid-90s, he hooked up with a gal to party. I was there. We all saw her putting the moves on him all night. He was actually trying to avoid her during the party, but no matter what he tried to sneak off to, she would find him. So the more he backed away, the more she chased him. Shocker. She stayed next to him, running her hands up and down his arms and talking about how strong he must be. Things like that. Anyway, we all eventually went home, and a couple of days later, he told us he did the deed with her that night. Low-hanging fruit. He's like, all right, fine, I'll fuck this bitch. I remember him saying something to the effect of, I didn't really want to. I mean, she's all right looking, but I'm not that into her. I mainly just did it because why not? It's there for the taking, might as well. So about a week later, one morning, the county sheriff shows up at his house, asks his name, and when he affirms, places him under arrest for the R word, and you can't say it that you can't say on YouTube. Well, that R word is rhymes with grape. Well, she had a boyfriend. Of course. We all knew she had a boyfriend, but remember, we live in a small town. Why didn't you tell your bro that? But then again, I guess you didn't think he was actually going to hook up with her. So she's chasing after him the whole night, putting the moves on him. You all heard that. And then he finally hooks up with her, and then she then calls the cops and claims grape. Word gets around. I guess word got to the boyfriend that she had cheated on him. So in her infinite wisdom, she decided the only way to get her boyfriend was to make an accusation, and she filed a report with the county sheriff. Scumbag. I was one of several people that was asked if I would testify in court about what I witnessed. I agreed to do so, but I never went to court. She eventually confessed that she made the whole thing up because she didn't want her boyfriend to break up with her. Of course, other than her boyfriend breaking up with her, she faced no other consequences. That is fucking horrible. She should be behind bars for many years for doing that. What if he got busted? We all know what happened to this guy, and all he did was hook up with her, and she was chasing after him. You all saw this. Fucking criminal. At least the boyfriend dumped her. Another story. He says, my sister is about 8 years younger than me. Yep, the same sister I already mentioned. Back when I was in my early 20s, and she was a freshman or sophomore in high school, they had a new teacher at school that was about my age. My sister came to me and said she wanted to set me up with this teacher, and she thought we'd make a cute couple. Okay. This was maybe a year or so before I met my wife. I wasn't really interested in being set up and declined. I'm glad I did. This teacher didn't even last one full school year. She was caught having an inappropriate relationship with a male student. Apparently, they were caught by the student's father in the backseat of the car, parked about a half a block from the student's home. This didn't make national headlines like things do today, but this was the 1990s and the internet was in its infancy. Yeah, it would have made headlines today. Your sister, huh? You want her to play matchmaker. Again, this is all crap happening in this small town. Human nature's the same, guys, all over the world. I try to look it up and see if I can find any articles from the archives of our local paper, but so far I can't find it. I'll try again, and if I happen across any articles for the saga, I'll forward one to you as proof. I believe you, dude. You don't have to send it to me. All the archives from this time period on our small town paper are basically photos of each page in the newspaper. It's really difficult to do, so I Google search anything from the mid-2000s and earlier. You don't know the exact dates. Another story. He says, I had a coworker once who I got along with pretty well. He's about 10 years younger than me. We weren't best friends or anything, but we did occasionally go golf together, and we swapped a lot of hunting and fishing stories, and this happened around 2007. He came into work one day and was acting a little depressed. I asked what was up, and he told me he had just broken up with his fiancée. Apparently, she slept with a guy she met at the bar. He found out and confronted her, and I'll never forget what he told me. He says, and the guy telling this says, this is verbatim. This is verbatim, but pretty close to what actually said. He says, I asked her what the fuck was she thinking, and she said, I couldn't help it, he was so hot. I gave him a puzzled look, and she said she couldn't help herself. And he said, yeah, she actually said that, so we're done. That's her reason for cheating on him, he was so hot. He does seem to be doing well these days. He no longer lives around here, but he still comes up in our area for deer season, and we message each other every now and then. I don't know if he's married or not, but I don't think so. I think he might have been R-pilled hard after what happened before R-pill was a term. Oh, I guarantee that event like that makes somebody R-pilled, and yet everybody wants to hate those out there that are R-pilled. Another story. He says, this next one I'll admit I will admit I can't confirm everything. It's based on a small town rumor, but I heard things from sources close to those involved that make me inclined to believe there is quite a bit of truth in what is being said. There were 3 married couples I went to high school with. These weren't close friends of mine, but acquaintances. I knew them all fairly well, but we never hung out or anything like that. These 3 couples formed a club. A club, huh? I'm sure it's not a book club or a candle club or a pottery making club. This is not going to be good. The rumors were that there were some trading of partners in the club at specific parties that they only attended to, if you get my drift. So they're swingers parties. At the time, I would say I chalked it up to just that, rumors. Then later, the rumors are that these 2 people were sneaking off on their own and hooking up outside of said parties, which is apparently against the rules. Let me guess, these 2 people were the wives. Not long after, there are 2 divorce notices in the local papers, which gave the rumors a little more validity. Like Forrest Gump once said, that's all I have to say about that. Again, this is a lot going on in just your small town, dude, but yeah, this shit happens everywhere. Next story. I had another coworker that got caught cheating. Both parties involved were cheating on their spouses. We're in a small town, but you do have 24-hour fitness centers. You buy a membership and you get a key card for access anytime. It's not really big, and there isn't a ton of equipment, but it's okay. Anyway, I hear rumors all over town one day about how someone was caught on camera doing the deed in the shower at the gym. There shouldn't be any cameras in the shower at the gym. Turns out the guy was someone I work with. What was a rumor for a day turned into a very big brouhaha because the owner of the gym who had the footage was the cousin of the guy's wife. The woman he was caught with was also married. I guess they were both at the gym late at night when nobody else was there and didn't realize a place like that has security cameras everywhere. Well, they're going to have cameras everywhere, but should be actually in the shower, for God's sakes. Or even in the locker room, people getting dressed. Videos got leaked, and within a few days, it was all over Facebook in our town. There were no actual videos of the deed itself because there are no cameras in the shower room, okay. But it was pretty obvious from the videos what was going on. This is around 2018. There you go. Another one. In the late 90s, I had been promoted to supervisor in my department at work. Just a few months into my new job, I have an employee ask if he can speak to me about his pay. I said sure and went into my office, and he tells me how now he and his wife are having issues, and it boils down to him not making enough money. He was hoping that he can get a raise, and it might help him at home. The conversation was much longer than this, of course, but that's the short version. I told him I'd see what I could do, and after digging into it, I realized this guy was grossly underpaid. His previous job had been in a grocery store just stocking shelves, and he came to our company about 10 years prior and had worked his way into a fairly technical position. He didn't have a degree, but we had put him through a ton of training and sent him up to off-site courses to learn programming and operational skills for his job, and he was very good at it. He was our best employee by far in that role, but he was making about $5 an hour less than everyone else in that position. Well, then, damn it, he should speak up and get paid better. I mean, really. So I took this info to our plant manager and laid it out why we needed to give this guy a raise, and the plant manager approved a significant pay increase, more than the $5 he was behind his coworkers. Well, that's great. This is why you speak up, gentlemen. If you feel like you're owed something, speak up for yourself, because no one's just going to give you these things that you are entitled to. And when I say entitled, I mean actually entitled to it. The second I had approval, I called him into my office to give him the good news. I didn't think I'd ever seen someone's face light up like that. It was a Friday, and it was a light workload that day, so I told him to take the rest of the day off, and he wanted to go celebrate. He punched out and headed home. On Monday, he called in, told me he caught his wife with another guy in their bed when he got home on Friday. He quit the next day, and to be honest, I don't know where he is now. Yes, that actually happened. I gave him a big raise, and he never came back to work. Holy shit. Well, divorce the bitch. Take that raise, enjoy yourself, have a better life, because guess what? He's getting divorced. I'm assuming he got divorced after that, and he could use the money, although then they could probably use that to make him pay more in alimony, because he'd get paid, he probably would have to pay alimony, even though she was cheating. Small town. Next story. Then there's my cousin, we'll call Tim. Really, dude, we got another family member that's up to no good. Well, he's not really my cousin, but I consider him my cousin. He was once married to my actual cousin. Once. Unfortunately, she was kind of nuts. She was diagnosed with bipolar and was also an alcoholic. Oh, goody. I say was because she's doing better these days, and as far as I know, he hasn't touched alcohol, or she hasn't touched alcohol in years. Well, that's good. Anyway, their marriage is a pretty rocky one. They did have 2 kids together, and after the divorce, he was given full custody of both kids. The kids are grown up and are doing well these days. This divorce happened in the early 2000s, and he just lived his life for a while. Tim does fairly well for himself. He has a good job, but also does a little farming on the side with a small herd of beef cattle, maybe 20 to 30 heads. He eventually met another gal, and they got married around 2015, and things seemed to be going pretty smoothly until he caught her cheating on him in the barn. You want to talk about a stereotype of a small farming community, cheating in the barn, huh? Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of fun with hay poking at your body. It sounds like a crazy plot from a 70s PORN video, but it did happen. Tim had put up motion sensing cameras in the barn for calving season. When the heifers started calving, he wanted to be able to watch and check on them without having to leave the house, so that's why he put the cameras up. One night his wife goes out with the girls, and he's in bed sleeping when he gets a notification of motion in the barn. This was in the spring night in the middle of calving season, so he had the alert set up on his phone right next to his bed. He goes to check the video feed and sees his wife servicing another guy in the barn. Oh my God. He kicked her out and filed for divorce within a few days. This just happened about 2 years ago. Man, I'm sorry for him. First year cousin. I'm glad she's doing better, but still, now this shit. This is why you don't get married, guys. Let me rephrase that. This is why if you're going to get married, because I know a lot of you guys want families and kids and all that, you do it once. That's it. I don't see how people can go through the misery of divorce and all that and do it a second time, let alone the fucking idiots do it a third time. I'm honest here. Another one. This might be the worst one, and it happened to one of my best friends. We will call him Kyle. I heard this story from him many times. We're the same age, graduated the same class, and he was one of the first people I became friends with when I first moved here when I was 14 years old. After high school, Kyle went to a trade school, got a decent job, and was living in his high school sweetheart with his high school sweetheart, who we will call Jessica, because I know how much you like that name, SSM. If you're calling this girl Jessica, we know what's coming. All the craziest bitches ever known are named Jessica. I've not ever known a Jessica that wasn't nuts or devious or an a-hole or something. He says, thank God they were living together and not married, because this could have been way worse for him financially. Jessica moved to our town in the 10th grade from another state. This is important for later. Anyway, Kyle is working his ass off and doing well. He bought a house for about 50 grand, this is mid-late 90s, and it paid off in just a couple of years. He and Jessica had a son who was about 3 years old when this happened. How do you know that's his kid? If this girl's Jessica, we have to question if this kid is his. Around 1999-2000, he gets home from working a 12-hour shift, and his house is empty. I don't just mean that nobody was there, it was empty. The furniture was gone, all the dishes, gone. TV, clothes, curtains, everything gone. The bitch took the curtains. He says, yes, she even took his clothes. She took his clothes? He tries calling his mom, who lives in town, but she wouldn't answer, so he drives over there. Her mom answers her mom, okay. He calls her mom. Her mom answers the door and tells Kyle that Jessica left, and there's nothing he can do about it. The bitch took my clothes. Call the police. This is a robbery. Well, it's not like they were married. She might lay claim to this stuff. Well, after going through the house, he realized that she also took his guns. He's an avid hunter. Oh, hell no. So he goes to the police and reports them stolen. A week or two later, Jessica's mom shows up at his house and returns his guns. Nobody ever got in trouble for that. Are you kidding me? He had also contacted a lawyer about getting custody of his son, but unfortunately, since they weren't actually married, there wasn't much they could do about it. Even if they were married. And you know what? Good they weren't married. After a while, he was hearing rumors and starts checking on them until he finally locates Jessica in another town and a couple hours away. Turns out her boyfriend from middle school lived there, and they've been communicating via email for several months before she left. Well, of course. Women typically are always going to make sure they got a backup in place before they, split. Kyle also hears some other rumors about what has been going on with the boyfriend, so he calls the local sheriff in the county. She's to do a wellness check on his son. They find the boy in pretty bad condition. Malnourished, several people passed out, including Jessica, and all kinds of drugs and stuff around the house, with a meth lab in the basement. Holy shit. No forgiveness, no mercy for these fucking people. I would hope every one of them went OD. And this poor kid, right? Yeah, great idea, courts. Let the kid go with mom. This was Kyle's opportunity, since Jessica was now in jail for a whole bunch of stuff, and Kyle was given full custody of his son. Thank God. Happy ending? Not so fast. Of course not. Jessica spent about half a year in jail, and when she got out, moved back to our town to live with her mother. She managed to get supervised visits with her son, and Kyle was okay with that since she seemed to have cleaned herself up. Smack! Are you fucking kidding me, Kyle? Don't be a fucking dumbass. Then it gets worse. About a year later, she begs him to let their son spend one night with her and her mother. Kyle gives in and lets her have a full night, unsupervised. And you guessed it, she flees with her son that night back to her hometown that she originally moved to from high school to be with the same douchebag that she left the first time. Smack to Kyle. Oh my God. Kyle leaves my fucking channel. Again, this poor kid. Kyle goes to the police, but since she crossed state lines, he has to deal with the courts in that state. He hires a lawyer, and they drive out 12 hours one way to go to court. The lawyer is on the clock the whole time, so this trip costs Kyle thousands of dollars. They get there, the piece of shit judge orders the child to be with his mother, and Kyle has to pay child support. I kid you not. Was the judge aware about the meth lab and everything like that? But let me guess, it was just some sucker, blue pill, nice guy, tampon judge Doesn't know any better. Kyle really went downhill after this for a while. He left his house to his own mother and stepfather and then left town. He was gone for about 7 years. He told me during that time period he worked landscaping jobs for cash and got involved with some pretty shady people and was in fact himself dealing large quantities of drugs, and that's how he got by and made a living. So he became just as bad as Crazy Jessica. Crazy Jessica was having a meth lab in the basement and doing all that stuff, and now this guy's gotten involved with that. That's the direction he goes. I mean, I get everybody gets worn down and all that, but for God's sakes. I mean, it's kind of... Okay, how can I put this without getting in trouble on YouTube? Well, if Kyle went down the dark path and he was dealing with very shady people and in the drug business and everything, in that line of work, you meet people that do other things for pay that's highly illegal, which probably could have, made sure Jessica wasn't around to take care of that kid, hint, hint. So, but anyhow, then one day he woke up and had an epiphany. Just looked at himself in the mirror and said, "What the fuck am I doing?" There you go. Packed up his stuff and moved back home. Thankfully, his parents kept the house. Nobody was living there, but they kept the taxes paid and the yard mowed, and they were just glad he was back home. Well, I'm glad he had an epiphany and all, but Kyle, if he was involved in that line of work, he's helped ruin lives. He's no saint. No excuse. Kyle got his old job back and started getting back on track with his life. He met another gal and they started dating. Then one day, about a year or so afterwards, he moved back home. He was driving down our main street, and a state trooper was driving the opposite direction and just whipped around and pulled him over. The trooper was someone we knew from high school. Kyle said will never forget how bad the trooper felt about this. He walked up to Kyle's window and said, "Kyle, I'm really sorry about this, but I have to take you to jail." "For what?" "For not paying your child support." You see, this trooper knew the story behind all of it, but his hands were tied. Kyle had a warrant, and that was that. All goes back to getting involved with a crazy chick named Jessica, or a crazy chick who should be named Jessica. Kyle then spent the next 11 months in jail as he was over $80,000 in arrears for child support. Then one day he called social services from jail and asked how much he needed to pay to get out. He'd still be in arrears, but if he came up with $6,000, they'd let him out. So he called his mom, and she had to sell his car, all his guns, and anything else she could find. A few days later, he was free again. It's worth noting that his son still lives in the other state, but he comes to visit Kyle a couple times a year. Apparently, he can't stand his mother, and has little to nothing to do with her these days. Well, there's a frickin' surprise. Meanwhile, Jessica's living in our town again with her mother. She had married another guy, but eventually he ran out of money, so she's back here. Of course. Kyle flips her off every time he sees her. Kyle's now doing very well for himself again. He's married now. Are you fucking kidding me? After all this, he got married again? Smack to Kyle. You don't need a wife to make you happy. In fact, you can be happy not with a wife. Happy life, no wife. Don't these guys learn? Still with the same girl he was dating her after he got her back. They've been together for probably about 15 years now and have been married for about 5 years and have 2 kids. Well, I'm glad it's going well, but, you never know. My fingers are getting tired of typing now. These are the stories where I personally know the people involved. Yes, we live in a small town, but I don't know everyone. I've heard stories involving open relationships, people making some pretty sick porn videos. No, I haven't seen them, and much more. There are tons of stories like these, and I've heard about similar things happening in this town, but most of those I know only a third or fourth hand. And you know how stories can change as they get passed from one person to person, so I'm going to edit it here. We are indeed living in Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. Well, there you go, man. Absolutely. So, great collection of stories, man. I mean, I'm still wondering about your family, but yeah, where the hell is this town? Because I'd like to know where this town is, so I never go there. But it goes to show you guys, this crap happens everywhere. Human nature is no different now than it was 5,000 years ago. It doesn't make a difference where you are in the world or how strict your culture is or anything like that. People do what they do. And you know this because I've had 5 years worth of content, of stories, articles, everything, and they just keep on coming to people doing crazy things. So like I say, as gentlemen, learn from others' mistakes, take care of yourselves, don't make the mistakes these others make, hopefully, and you'll be okay. Because believe me, there's plenty of people who are going to keep fucking up left and right. But anyhow, bro, I'm glad you're doing well, and the drama and turmoil hasn't entered your life, and fingers crossed it stays that way. But I appreciate you writing this in. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, you got a story to share, definitely send it my way. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just make sure it's a good one, and I'll definitely cover it. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.